Hey, thanks for joining us for this Uncommon City sermon. We're a community in St. Pete, Florida, learning to walk in the good, beautiful, and true way of Jesus. If you're watching or listening and want to learn more, visit uncommon.city. We'd love to meet you.
Excellent. Let's start off by reading the section for this Sunday. So the next day Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. Finding Philip, he said to him, "Follow me." Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from Bethsaida. Philip found Nathanael and told him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." "Nazareth? Can anything good come from there?" Nathanael asked. "Come and see," said Philip. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said to him, "Here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." "How do you know me?" Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you." Then Nathanael declared, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus said, "You believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than that." He then added, "Very truly I tell you, you will see the heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." So before we dived in on Sunday, we just sat around these two particular questions. What stands out to you from the passage? And what questions does it stir in your mind? So perhaps you'd like to just pause and just think through those. So what stands out to you from this passage? And what questions does it stir in your mind? Feel free to pause and take some time on that. And we'll get going again. So let's go back and take a look at and put the framing around where we are in this particular passage. So last week, or in the previous sessions, we talked about Jesus being the Lamb of God, and that John was baptizing at Bethany on the other side of Jordan. So just a bit of a picture of where that is. So that's where Bethany is, on the other side of the Jordan. And that's where, of course, we know that Andrew and perhaps John followed Jesus. And that was Jesus the rabbi as the teacher. Then we know that Andrew went and found, and he brings Peter as well to Jesus. So that all happened in Bethany, east of Jordan. And then it says the next day Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. So that goes up north towards Galilee. That's about a 32-hour walk that Jesus embarked on. And somewhere along the line, Jesus found Philip and said, "Follow me." Now, Philip was from Bethsaida, like Andrew and Peter, big one. Philip was from Bethsaida, like Andrew and Peter. And then Philip found Nathanael from Canaan, and we know that from John chapter 21, verse 2, where it talked about Nathanael being from Canaan. And then we have that interesting verse where Nathanael said, "Nazareth? Can anything good come from there?" And see Nazareth is just south of Cana. So that gives you a bit of a framing of what we're talking about from the land of Israel at Jesus' time. So let's dig into this and unpack a couple of things. So Jesus decided. Now this decided word is not just, let's go. It was, he decided. It was an intentional, he was ready to act. He was going to do something. It was important that he went. We're not told why he decided to go to Galilee, but we are told, we do know, for instance, that there was a wedding that was going to happen in a few days after that. We knew that he had to get there, but it seems that there were very important other things that were on Jesus' mind as well at the time. So the next day, Jesus decided to leave, and he found Philip, and he said, "Follow me." So finding Philip, this finding was not just accidental. It was intentional. Jesus was looking for, and he found Philip. And he said, "Follow me." Now it's interesting, this is the first disciple, certainly from John's Gospel, that is a calling rather than following. So all the other disciples to date in John have been deciding to follow Jesus. Here's the first time that Jesus says, "Follow me." And I guess that's because maybe he had a reason, a particular job that he wanted Philip to do at that time. So we know, of course, then in the next verse that Philip went and found Nathanael. Again, this finding, it was an intentional, something he had to do. And of course, we know Philip was from Bethsaida, so Jesus probably found him in Bethsaida, and he had to then go across to the other side of the Jordan to Cana to find Nathanael. So he found Nathanael, and then he used these words that we have found the one Moses wrote about in the law. Sorry, Moses wrote about and in the law, and about the one the prophets wrote about. So Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. So maybe Philip said this as a bit of an indication of what was important to Nathanael. So, for instance, if I wanted to convince someone to come and meet, say, Miko, I'd emphasize the aspects that would be attractive to that person. Or Corey, for instance, I'd probably tell them, he's a great guitarist, an incredible guitarist. Come and listen to Corey. In the same way, I think this is an indication of the reason why Philip went to Nathanael. He said, look, we found this Jesus, Nazareth, the one who Moses talked about in the law and about the prophets wrote about. Jesus, the son of Nazareth and the son of Joseph. Now, interestingly enough, of course, Jesus of Nazareth, slightly wrong if you wish, but he was born in Bethlehem. He happened to be staying in Nazareth, and that's where his family was from. But he was born in Bethlehem. So realistically, it should be Jesus from Bethlehem, which may have helped a bit in the future with the arguments of the Pharisees. And son of Joseph, we know he's the son of God rather than the son of Joseph. And so these may have been almost confusing to Nathanael if he was a person who'd been digging into the Bible and trying to understand from the law and the prophets where the Messiah might come from. And so he should be from Bethlehem, and he should be someone that was not really known where he came from. He should be son of God. And so in some ways, those two words may have thrown Nathanael off. But either way, the important focus here was that Philip was going to Nathanael saying, I found the Messiah, the one whom Moses wrote about in the law and about whom the prophets also wrote. So what were the types of things that Philip was thinking about? So these are some of the verses that you'll find in Moses that relate to the Messiah. So I'll put enmity between you and the woman in Genesis chapter 3, where we see essentially the enemy and God. So God's going to be putting that between the woman, so the enemy and Mary and Jesus essentially. And then Deuteronomy talks about raising up from a prophet like them amongst his brothers. So two examples of what Philip might have been thinking about from Moses and the law. And the prophets, we have many, many comments, specifically in Isaiah 53, you know well, pierced for our transgressions. He was oppressed, he was afflicted, so talking clearly about Jesus. And the virgin shall conceive and bear a son in Isaiah 7, or Micah, we know that from you from Bethlehem will come the Messiah. And from Zechariah 9, he was humble, mounted on a donkey, on the colt, the foal of a donkey. So very clear indications of Jesus, not we know Jesus did. And so these are the types of things that Philip was thinking about when he went to Nathanael and said, Moses in the law and the prophets spoke about Jesus, and this is the one we found. And then Nathanael's reaction was interesting, of course. Nazareth? Can anything good from there? Okay. So what's happening? What's this Nazareth, and why is it such a bad place to come from? Well, here's a picture of the hill that they believe is where Cana was. It's Kiryat Cana or Kiryat Kana. And interesting enough, on that hill, if you look across the other direction, you can look across the valley, and right on the other side of the valley is Nazareth. So from the hill, where Philip was maybe talking to Nathanael could have looked across to Nazareth and said, Nazareth, across there? What good can come from there? That's one aspect. The other aspect, if we dig into what was Nazareth at the time. So Nazareth was a really humble village, around about 200 to 400 people, isolated, very small agricultural village, separated from the main thoroughfare. It was largely unknown and held in low regard, even though it was quite close to Canaan. It is not mentioned during the period when the Israelites came back and the various cities were established, but we know that from history that there, around about 600 to 900 BC, was when the small town was originally established. It's interesting, not included in the Joshua 9 settlements, which mentions 12 towns and 6 villages. Nazareth is also not included in the 25 cities of Galilee, which are mentioned by Josephus at the time. Now, Josephus is outside the Bible. He's a local commentator, so Josephus is well known as a commentator at the time, and he didn't mention, among the 45 cities he talked about Galilee, he didn't mention Nazareth. And it was a continuous settlement from around 600 to 600 BC, and then it was not really, the whole settlement fell apart, and then it was re-established around about 200 before Christ. And so that whole Nazareth thing, it was a small village, it was unknown, it was in the backwaters compared to Cana, which was located on the trade route between major Roman settlements of Sepphoris and Tiberias. It was right on the edge of that route, and so a lot of people coming through it. There were a lot of visitors. It was a city. It was a vibrant town, 500 to 700, so nearly double the size. And they likely consider themselves better off and more progressive than Nazareth. And it is one of the 45 cities, for instance, that Josephus mentions. So he mentioned Canaan. So Nathanael had good reason to ask, what good can come from there? And certainly there was nothing in the Bible that talked about Nazareth. So Nazareth, can anything good come from there? Nathanael asks Philip. And Philip says, come and see. Just come and see. So I guess this is the first question that I'd like to just ask us to ponder. Are we at risk at missing Jesus because of our biases and our prejudice? So Nathanael could have chosen not to go and see Jesus, and he could never have met the Messiah. And the question is, do we sometimes miss out because of our biases and prejudices? I'm from Tampa, I don't cross the bridge to St. Pete. There's nothing good there anyway. Oh, she's a woman, she doesn't know anything. Or he's a man, he doesn't know about this. Or he's from a different cultural background, so he wouldn't understand what I'm going through. Or he's from that political party. He could not possibly be a Christian. So let's sit with this one for a while. Are we at risk of missing Jesus because of those biases and prejudices? Okay, let's dive in a bit further. So when Jesus saw Nathanael approach him, he said to him, here truly is an Israelite in whom there's no deceit or no guile. I guess one question we often ask is this sarcasm? Or was Jesus being sarcastic here? As Nathanael said, Nazareth, can anything good come from there? Is this Jesus responsive? All right. No guile, really? I think not. And if you actually look at the Greek words underneath there, and John is very careful, he uses the term Israelite and Jew in the Gospel of John. Israelite really being those who are genuine seekers of God, and not just by birth, but real from the heart seekers of God, whereas Jews are those who may be born Jew but resist Jesus and his purposes. So you often find him talking about the Jews as those who were the Pharisees and resistance, whereas the Israelites were those who were much more those who were after God and seeking God. So Jesus is saying here is a deeply committed Israelite with a true heart. So no guile, no deceit, true heart open to God, no self-deception, no desire to deceive others. Jesus really saw Nathanael and saw the desires of his heart. And then Nathanael's response, of course, is, how do you know me? So immediately what Jesus said was clearly something that was very clear for Nathanael. That's crazy. Philip has just introduced us. How can you possibly see into my heart and know me? And really know me. And again, the Greek here is very much a personal first-time acquaintance. So really know me. How do you know me like that? This must have thrown Nathanael off balance really very quickly. So how do you know me? That I'm a true Israelite and I've got no deceit. I'm a seeker of God. And you know that of me without being introduced, see me for the first time. And Jesus answered, I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. Now, did Jesus just look over the wall and see Philip chatting to Nathanael while he was sitting under the tree in his own garden? Or is there more to this statement? Again, looking at the underlying Greek for this, we get the word to see. Big pardon. To see is really saw. It implies not just looking, but seen with the mind and the understanding, the inner perception. So it's, I get you, is what he was saying. So Jesus is not simply saying, I saw you under the tree before Philip talked to you. Rather, he's saying, as I perceive in my spirit that you were just doing something significant before Philip called you. So what's meant by under the fig tree? We'll dig into that shortly. But first, let's look at how Nathan responded to that. I saw you. I recognized that you were under the fig tree before Philip called you. And Nathanael's response, he then declared, Rabbi, teacher, my teacher, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. Well, let's unpack this a bit. So, Rabbi, one, as we know from previous messages, this is an expert teacher, someone who is perfect to follow. So he's really lifting him up. He's not just saying teacher, he's saying Rabbi. So he recognizes something in Jesus already. Then he uses the two terms for the Messiah, or relating to the Messiah from the Old Testament. One is the Son of God. So we've seen Psalm 2, for instance, the anointed one. In 2 Samuel, same type of thing. I will establish my kingdom. I'll be his father, he'll be my son. We see the King of Israel from Zechariah. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. See, your king comes to you, righteous and having salvation. He's humble and mounted on a donkey. So we see these two terms of Son of God and King of Israel being very much Nathanael saying, I recognize you as the Messiah, the King, the one who is coming. So Nathanael gets it, and he uses two deeply rooted terms in the Old Testament related to the coming of the Messiah. He clearly agrees with the words that Philip used when he called him. That is the Messiah, Moses, what Moses spoke about and what the prophets spoke about. So what happened? What caused this change in mind? Why do we see the sudden jump in Nathanael's thinking? Well, Jesus points it out and said, so you believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree. What does this mean? So let's dive into that a little bit. So under the fig tree, what is the meaning of is it more than just sitting under the tree? This phrase under the fig tree seems to be a recurring idiom in the Hebraic scriptures relating to the understanding of the Messianic understanding. So in Micah, for instance, it talks about everyone will sit under their tree or under their own vine. We see also in Zechariah that in that day declares the Lord, that each of you will invite your neighbor to sit under your vine and under your fig tree. So we know that from that time, or so I say it's less clear at that time, but we know from what we can get and what we can learn from rabbinic Judaism at that time, that Second Temple time, that there was a cool place that they often used to go and sit, a cool as in shady place, that they often go and sit, where they would be focusing on. So Rabbi would take his students, his disciples, and sit under the tree, and that's where they discuss things. And so it suggests that here is in the Jewish roots that under the fig tree is an ancient Jewish idiom that means studying messianic prophecies. The idiom stems from this Micah 4:4 passage, and is really referred to, if you go back to the rabbinic midrash, it's actually there. It's referred to in terms of a place where the leaders, the rabbis, would sit with their disciples. So it's an interesting thing. So are we seeing something that is more than just purely under the tree, but that in fact it's a common ideal location, number one, and secondly, it's a place that is an indication that they were there studying the messianic prophecies. And so that's what suddenly caught when Jesus said, I saw you under the tree. He recognized that Nathanael was a studier and a person who sought God, sought the Messiah. And from there, that in fact, Nathanael was a seeker of God. And so he responded. And Nathanael's response of the messianic focus on Jesus was a clear indication that he got what Jesus had said to him. And he recognized that Jesus had recognized that he'd been seeking God. He'd been looking for the Messiah in what he was studying, that Jesus saw him and recognized that is important. Question number 2. Are we spending the time under that fig tree, passionately seeking to know Jesus better? Right, let's look at the third big item that I think is important from the scripture. So Jesus said, you believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree, you will see greater things than that. And he added, very truly, I tell you, you will see the heaven open and angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. What's that? Some people suggest that might be the transfiguration, but if we go back to those words, those are very interesting words, especially if we look at it in the light of Genesis chapter 28. So Jacob, on his travels, when he'd been going from Beersheba to Haran, he'd reached a certain place and he stopped in the night because the sun had set. And taken a stone there, he put it under his head and he lay down to sleep. And he had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching the heavens, and the angels of God ascending and descending on it. And there above it stood the Lord and said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and Isaac. And when Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. And we see the same few words in what Jesus just said. You will see heaven open up and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. So Jesus is not only saying the Lord is in this place, he's also saying the Lord has come down that stairwell to be with us, God incarnate, Emmanuel. And he's also saying that he, Jesus, is the gate to heaven. So we just read that Jacob talked about this being the gateway to heaven. Jesus is that gate to heaven. He is the way to God. I am the way, the truth, and the life, it says in John chapter 10. So Jesus was saying, not only will you, Nathanael, will you see, you recognize that I can see of you what you've been looking for, but you will see of me who I really am in terms of the Messiah, the gateway, the person, the God who actually opens up the way from heaven to earth. So on the Son of Man. So Jesus as the Son of Man, being that gateway, being essentially at the bottom of the stairway, and bringing God to earth and open up the way to God. So let me ask you, do we take our attention off ourselves? So a lot of what Nathanael has been doing is seeking God. It's all about me seeking God. And Jesus said, there's greater things than that. Flip it around and take your eyes off yourself and see and perceive how great I really am. Those are the greater things. So they're greater things if we will turn and we'll take our focus off ourselves and focus on Jesus to see who he really is, and take our eyes off our own circumstances, our own striving, our focus on what we're trying to do. We're trying to find God and really see Jesus for whom he really is, the Christ, the Messiah, the Anointed One. So, who's this Jesus? Let's run through what we've seen. He's an intentional finder. He's the person that Moses and the prophets wrote about, the Son of God, the King of Israel. He's a perceiver of our hearts and our character. He's the one who really sees us. He's the Son of Man, the great and awesome God who came to be with us. Jesus is the Messiah, the Anointed One. So let's just look at those three big questions again. Are we at risk of missing meeting Jesus because of our biases and our prejudices? Are we spending enough time under that fig tree passionately seeking to know Jesus better? And are we turning away from ourselves? There are greater things. Are we taking the time to flip our perspective and to see how great Jesus really is?